That's okay. You got it. Alhamdulillah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So tonight we're going to continue with the chapter of Ghusl, the chapter dealing with the obligation of the Ghusl. And before we start, it's important to remember that these, all of these chapters so far fall under the chapter of tahara, purification. And the question is, why is a tahara so important? That's the question. Why is being clean so important Islamically? One reason. Anybody? Huh? For the salah. That the tahara is connected to the salah. In the whole book in general, books of fiqh in general, they don't deal with aqeedah, don't deal with adab, they deal with the ahkam, halal, haram. They don't generally deal with, even though an issue might come up from aqeedah or adab might be mentioned, the general subject matter is not aqeedah, belief of the Muslim. It's on the halal and the haram. So, or I'd say worship for the most part, or there's a section on worship. So the most important worship that we have in Badaniyah is what? Huh? Tawheed is aqeedah. Right? If we talking about actions, salah, right, which is the pillar, a pillar, not just important, it's a pillar. So the chapter of salah, before we can even talk about the salah, before we even discuss the salah, there is no salah without wudu, or being clean, or ghusl if need be. So this whole, you could say, introduction, which is not an introduction, but all of this comes before the chapter of salah. We can't talk about praying if we don't know how to make wudu properly, if we don't know what water we can use, what water we can't use, how to clean ourselves after going to the bathroom. We can't even discuss the salah if we don't know those, let's say, prerequisites, conditions, because tahara is a condition for the salah. So these are not issues just, they're not just random issues. These are not just random issues. That everything is connected to, if we keep it real simple, can I pray or can't I pray? We Muslims, we gotta pray 5 times a day. Things happen in life. It's life, stuff happens. It's time to pray. Can I pray? Or what, if I can't pray the way I am now, what do I have to do to get ready for the salah? In order that I'm ready and that this time for the salah doesn't go out before I'm ready. Oh yeah? Because praying in the salah in this time is also another issue that is important. So the Musannif rahimahullah, he says, فَصْلٌ مُوجِبَاتُ الْغُسْلِ سَبْعًا. He said, there's 7 things that necessitate, that is obligatory, that a person has to make a ghusl if this happens. If one of these things happen, a person must make a ghusl before they can pray. They can't pray except that they have to make a ghusl before they can pray. Now the first question is, or should be, what? What's the first question? What's a ghusl? What's a ghusl? That's number 1. Anybody? Yes. Okay. To clean yourself for salah, or to purify yourself for salah. Huh? Is that accurate? That's true. That's a part of it. That's not accurate enough, though, because we can do, if that's the case, we can just make wudu. Right? We go back there and make wudu, and that's what would be considered cleaning yourself and purifying yourself for the salah. The full body purification is usually translated as the a bath right? A bath. Is that accurate? A bath? Hmm?
It's a form of it. Yeah, it's a form of it.
Like, if we leave it as a bath as we know it,
No.
that's not accurate enough.
No.
But why?
Because the specifications that, like, the specifications for the business.
There's specific things to a ghusl. Like, why else? Something bigger than that. The bath that we know.
It's not total body, it's not head and everything here.
Yeah, possibly is. You take a shower, take a bath.
Shower, no, it's a different bath.
A bath, even if you take a bath, you want to clean your hair, huh? The niyyah,
No.
the intention makes everything different. And that's why the part of the intention, or what the niyyah does, is it separates exactly that. A customary practice from worship. What we wash and bath and shower, what we call that, which is, it can be translated as the same name, but it doesn't carry the same weight based on the intention.
It's crazy because I actually watched the video on the Ghusl and he was saying like for the Ghusl of Janaba, and he was like literally two people could jump into a pool of water and one person didn't make the niyyah for the Ghusl of Janaba, but one person did.
Exactly.
So because they jumped in the water, all they did was have to, they got their whole body wet and bring water to their mouth.
Exactly. Based on the niyyah, based on the intention. So the intention is going to separate, even if we talk about wudu. If I go back here and I wash all the body parts that I wash for wudu, but I did it because it's hot outside, I'm just trying to cool off, then that's what the intention is. It doesn't count as wudu. Same thing for the ghusl. If I come in the house after Dhuhr, it's hot, it's 110 degrees outside, I have to take a shower and I'm cool out under the air, right? I come in there, I take a shower, and that's what I do, for the purpose of cooling off. So the ghusl is with the intention, and if, without getting into the different types, the full body cleansing. And there's two ways to do that. There's two ways to do that. The author doesn't mention them here. The sifatul ghusl, in the more detailed books, the description of the ghusl is mentioned. But the simplest ghusl is like what you mentioned, to go and wet your whole body with water with the intention first. That the whole body is drenched in water. Nothing's left dry. That's a simple, basic ghusl, as they call it, mujzi. A person that would count as a ghusl. That means they didn't do the more specific, making the wudu, cleaning the body. They didn't do that one. But the full body ghusl, the full body bath, as was said, sometimes they call it a ritual bath. Sometimes it's translated in books as a ritual bath, right? But the basic ghusl is to make sure the whole body is wet from head to toe with the intention of making a ghusl.
And I know this is a long time ago, but would the basic ghusl be permissible in place of like on a Friday when you're supposed to make the ritual ghusl? And would it be permissible to say you rushing, you feel me, throw water and run it, and then run it, you know,
Ghusl is a ghusl. Ghusl is a ghusl. Which one you choose to make on Jummah, that's a different issue. We're going to get to that, inshallah. So he says the things that necessitate a ghusl are 7 things. If any of these things happen, and this is important also, it doesn't mean that the things mentioned are permissible to do Islamically. It doesn't mean that whatever is mentioned is not sinful. That's not the issue. This area is not, we're not discussing, are these actions that we're talking about permissible or not permissible? Are they halal or haram? We're talking about if a person does this, do they have to make a ghusl or not? How do they prepare for the salah? Okay? The hukum, the ruling on the actual action is something different. طيب, he says number 1, خروج المني من مخرجه بلذة. The first one is when semen comes out of the place that is designated to come out from. It comes out of the normal place that semen comes from. طيب, is there a time, that the question is there a time when semen comes out of a place other than its normal exit? Other than the normal place where it's supposed to come from? It's possible. Semen can come from, it's usually in a rare case somebody's sick and they got a cut on the semen, can come from different places in the body. That's not the normal thing that we used to. That's not its normal exit place. So when it comes from the normal place that it exits from the body, specifically biladha or bilidha, and it comes out with force.
So that one thing or two.
That's one. All that, but it's a condition with semen coming out. That it comes out with force. Over. Meaning, it's possible, right, that semen comes out for different reasons, other than shahwa, or other than the desire. It's possible. It could be cold. Extreme weather temperatures, people's bodies react different. If semen comes out, the question is, how does a person respond? What do they do in order to pray? So the condition on that is that it comes out with force, and then it comes out like that. Not just any semen that comes out necessitates a ghusl. Now, the fact that it came out of its proper place means that a person at least has to do what? At least wudu. Right? At least wudu. Number two, وانتقاله. And this shows how precise the ulama are. They say, number two, even when the semen moves from its original place that is stored in the body. There's a place where semen is stored in the body. When a person feels that the semen has moved from that place, even if it didn't come out yet, even if it didn't exit the body, but it moved from its original storage place. You with me?
I'm with it, but I understand what you're saying, but I'm trying to visualize that, like how that would.
You can't visualize, it's a feeling.
That's what I'm trying to like understand, like because if you're saying it didn't come out with force, how did if it moved?
It moved. Don't combine them. Come out with force. What's the second one? Move from where? The storage place. It moved, it didn't exit the body. It's still in the body. And this is why not all the ulama agree on this one. Some say that it has to come out. But according to the author's positions, even if it moves from the area that is stored inside the body, intiqaluhu, from its storage place, that also necessitates a ghusl. Number three, وتغيب حشفة في فرج أو دبر ولو لبهيمة أو ميت بلا حائل. For a person, and this is based on the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إذا التقى ختانان وجب الغسل فقد وجب الغسل. That if the two private parts touch, if the two private parts touch, the penis touches the vagina without semen coming out, without ejaculation, the fact that they touch, that a person has to make the full body ghusl in order to pray. Clear? And this is what the issue is based on. That's the issue is, he says, وَتَغْيِيبُ حَشَفَةً. The fact that the head of the penis enters, and he says farjan, but he specifies it odubr, whether it enters the vagina or the anus, whether it's anal sex or normal sex, right? Not that anal sex is permissible. Clear? It's haram. Anal sex is haram. And it's a curse on the one who performs anal sex. If we don't know. Anal sex is haram, but this chapter is not discussing the permissibility of anal sex. If a person does that, right? A person might say, well, the private part didn't touch the vagina, so I don't have to make no salat. Whether it touches the vagina, the anal, right? And then he says, walau li bahima. Even if, and this ain't far-fetched nowadays, and this book was written hundreds of years ago, even if a person were to have sex with an animal, people do it, right? And even more, this book is over, the author died 400 years ago. So it's not something, they don't just mention stuff in books just for the sake of mentioning it. All right, these are issues that have to be dealt with. We Muslim, we got to pray. And some things there's no shyness in mentioning. Even if it's an animal that a person was trying to have sex with, he says, "O mayyitan," or even if the other body was dead. The fact that what? The two private parts touch? Wajib ghusl. Have to make a ghusl in order to pray. Does that mean a person can go have sex with a dead body? No, it doesn't mean that. Does it mean they can go touch the animals? No. Does it mean they can have animal sex? None of that has to do with this. But what happens if they do that? If a person does that, Allah protect us, then they have to make a ghusl. Then he says, bila ha'il. Again, it goes back to what is considered touching. Skin on skin. Skin on skin. Which means if there's a barrier, they say if there's a barrier between the skin, then it doesn't obligate the ghusl. But that doesn't mean that a person wouldn't have to make a ghusl. I mean, that doesn't mean they wouldn't have to make a ghusl if they were to ejaculate. If semen came out, then that's also going to necessitate a ghusl anymore. And they say, some of them say that the fin or the thin barrier is like no barrier. Something that's thin, it's like it's not even there. Yeah, they thin, it's like it's not there. Tayyib, that was number 3. All of those fell into number 3. Tayyib, number 4, wa islamu kafirin. When a person becomes a Muslim. When a person becomes a Muslim, and remember it says what? If these things happen, what's the ruling on the ghusl? No, what's the ruling? What does wajib mean? Yeah. There you are. So pay attention, because all of the ulama, some of these have khilaf. Some scholars disagree on if all of these 7 are obligatory. And this is one of them that they disagree on. That there were people during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, plenty of people, they took shahada. I mean, yeah, they took shahada, and they did not. The Prophet ﷺ didn't command them to go make a ghusl. Plenty of people became Muslim during the time of the Messenger ﷺ, and they didn't immediately make a ghusl. They weren't commanded to make a ghusl. So the ulama differ. There are some narrations that people did. They became Muslim, and they were commanded to go make a ghusl, but not everybody. So the author here, rahimahullah, he says it's obligatory, and others say no, it is not obligatory, it's recommended due to the large number of people who became Muslim during the time of the Prophet ﷺ that were not commanded to make a ghusl. Oh yeah, that was number 4. Number 5, wa mautun, death. Death, when a person dies, he makes a ghusl. There you go. That means the ghusl, that's why when we get into the chapter of the janazah, the ruling on washing the body of a Muslim is what? What's the hukum? The ruling. We got 5 rulings. It's obligatory. Somebody, not all of the Muslims don't have to wash his body or her body, but somebody has to wash the body. Right? The washing of the body of the dead Muslim is fard kifaya. Some of the Muslims have to do it. It's obligatory. It's not like it's recommended to wash. No, so it's a haq. So maut obligates the ghusl, which, as the ulama explained, is not due to the person being in a state of impure. The person doesn't become impure when they die. Like, for example, intercourse, the person becomes in a state of janaba, impure. Oh yeah. The touching of the 2 body parts, even if they didn't ejaculate, the body becomes impure, right? If semen comes out with force from its proper exit point, a person becomes impure. If a person dies, they don't become impure. Clear? Oh yeah. So now the question is, why to wash? Why wash? Why is the person that is dead obligated to be washed? Everybody's with me? Difference? It's something called ta'abudan, meaning after, oh, I'm sorry, I want to mix the two. You have the dead person, then you have the washer. The person washing the dead person. Okay? We're talking about the actual person being washed right now. Let's leave it here. Let's leave it here with the person being washed. Like, I'm not reading all of the Dalil, but all of these things have Dalil attached to them. But the book itself is not written like that, so I don't like to go too far off of what the author intended. Like, Mot. And there are various hadith of the practice of the Prophet, some washing bodies. Muslims die, they wash the women, women wash the women, and so forth and so on. Except for 2 people who are not washed. The 2 people who are not washed. The one who doesn't pray, Jade.
Because I read something like,
I'm sorry.
I read it.
The 2 Muslims who are not washed are who? The one that doesn't pray is Muslim? 2 Muslims that don't pray. If we say, yeah. Hey, yo, the one who died fighting the war, jihad. Those who die on the battlefield are not washed. They buried like how they are. But yeah, the Muslims who die, right? Now that's the issue. If a person don't pray, if the person doesn't pray, that's the issue of are they Muslim or not. That's a whole different discussion. But yeah. So number 5 was Mot. That when a person dies, that necessitates a ghusl. It necessitates a ghusl. It necessitates a ghusl. Number 6, the sisters, وَحَيْبٌ, the menses. When a woman comes off of her menstrual cycle, she can't. I know, it's homework. So I left that for you. The second person, you got to find that on your own. We got the shaheed, the one who dies in the battlefield. The second person is findable, inshallah. So yeah. A woman coming off of her mens cannot pray until she has made ghusl. The fact that the blood stopped flowing doesn't allow her to pray. It doesn't allow her to pray, and she has to make a ghusl first. She has to make a ghusl. And also, for the sisters, when they fast, postpartum bleeding. After the woman has a baby, and the bleeding goes on, the postpartum bleeding, when that bleeding stops, then it is obligatory. The ghusl is obligatory. It's not optional or sunnah, it's obligatory at that point. So those are the 7. Those are the 7. The menses is number 6, and the postpartum bleeding is number 7, meaning if any of those 7 things happen, obligatory for a person to make a ghusl. Of course, the exception of Islam al-Kafir, that if a person accepts Islam, some of the ulama, based on the many narrations that the Prophet ﷺ, people accepted Islam during his time, many people accepted Islam during his time, and he didn't command them to make ghusl. So the ulama say that shows that it's not obligatory. If it was obligatory, he would have told all of them to make a ghusl. If they can't pray, you wouldn't be able to pray like that, right? So not so we get confused and, it's a khilaf issue. Some say yes, some say no. And sometimes we need to know that because we don't want to make issues like that a point of argument, and it blows out of proportion when it's really not that deep. People more knowledgeable than us already discussed the issue, they differed on it, and life goes on. Tayyib. He moves on and he says, wa sunnah. Now he mentions the recommended times to make a ghusl. The recommended times of making a ghusl. Which means if a person didn't make a ghusl during these times, then are they sinful? Then it's not a sin. But at the least, they left off something that was a virtuous act. They left off a practice of the Prophet, which at no time should we try not to do what the Prophet. We should always try to do what the Prophet did. But sometimes it could be a lot of reasons. Time doesn't permit. There's not enough water. I don't have the space. Whatever the case is in that situation where I'm not able to do that sunnah and I can't do it, what is the hukum? What's the ruling before Allah? Am I sinful for not doing it or no? طيب. So now he mentions 15 times where it's recommended to make a ghusl. 15 different times it's recommended to make a ghusl. طيب. طيب. He says the first one, لجمعة, Friday, Salat al-Jum'ah. Why you look like that?
Because that was obligatory.
Gee, some of the early men say it's obligatory. The ghusl on Jum'ah. Some, the early men differ on, is it obligatory to make ghusl on Jum'ah or is it recommended? Early men differ. According to the author, what? It's according to the author. That's why a lot of times when it says the most correct opinion is based on the person, the sheikh, the author who wrote the book. Based on the dalil, based on everything the author gathered surrounding the issue, the author sees that the rule and the hukum on making the ghusl on Yom al-Jum'ah is recommended, not obligatory. طيب. Number one. Number two, wa'idin, for the Eids. Or the Eid. However you say it. Should be Eid, the Eid. For the Eid, it is also recommended to make a ghusl. Now, these two have, as they say, a nas connected to it. And the ulama, they compare Salat al-Kusuf or Salat al-Istisqa. Salat al-Kusuf is the eclipse prayer, the prayer for the eclipse. Has anybody ever prayed that? It happened a couple years ago here, maybe like 2 years ago, I think. It's a specific prayer when there's an eclipse. Sometimes it's a lunar eclipse, sometimes a solar eclipse, sometimes in the daytime, sometimes in the nighttime. And when that happens, then there's a salah for that ayah. As the Prophet described it, that's a sign from the signs of Allah Jalla wa'ala. It doesn't mean somebody died or somebody was born, but that's a sign from the signs of Allah. And the Prophet would rush and they would pray in Jama'ah. They would pray, the Muslims would come out and pray together when the eclipse happened. So, and also Salat al-Istisqa, which we may not understand the importance of because of the area we live in. But number three was the eclipse prayer. The eclipse prayer. And the fourth one is Istisqa. Istisqa is the salah for rain. It's a khutbah, it's a salah for rain. Because like in Mecca, it would rain like once a year sometimes. Like once all year. It would rarely, and if it rained twice in a year, you talking about rain, I'm talking about rain for like 10 minutes, and then that's it. 10-minute rain, and that's it for the year. That happens twice, maybe 10 minutes here, then it stops. It might happen another time, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. 15 minutes is long. 20 minutes is chaos. If it rains for 20 minutes in Mecca, there's no school tomorrow. Yeah, legit. It's going to be flooding. I'm talking about flooding. 20-minute rain in Mecca. I'm talking about cars floating down the street flooding. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. So it doesn't rain like that.
So does it heavy rain or is it like the way the rain is set up?
Honestly, it's not, a lot of times it's not like what we see, rain like that, but it doesn't rain that often, so a lot of times the drains that are there, which are not that great, but it hasn't rained, so they clogged up anyway with dirt, trash, so when it does rain, there's nowhere for the water to go. You know what I'm saying? And then when it rains, it'll be 20 minutes, I'm talking about some areas, cars are floating down the street, it's real bad. You know, I'm talking about an hour, not even a half hour. Yeah, it rained for days straight. I told people this before, it rained for 6-7 days sometimes with us, every day. They're like, there, so there's a prayer because it might not rain all year. You might get towards the end of the year and there was no rain at all. So there's a salah with a khutbah, istisqa, the prayer the rain prayer, for the sake of the khutbah that's given. That is sunnah is recommended also to make a ghusl for that. And the ulama mentioned that that is because the ghusl is recommended in these areas due to the large gathering of Muslims that's going to attend. Whenever there's a jama'ah, that the Muslims are gathering together, that is recommended to make a ghusl. Right? Whenever there's going to be a bunch of Muslims getting together, there's going to be some type of gathering, that is recommended to make a ghusl. Tayyib. Number 5. Number 5, wajunun. If a person lost their sanity, and then they came back to their sin, they gained their sanity back. Once they gain their sanity back, that they should also make a ghusl. Tayyib. Oh.
Is it true that it's like at a certain point of like anger, you consider to not have your sanity? Like you know, like some people like really black out,
Yeah.
all this stuff, and then don't remember what happened.
Right. Like we call it blacking out. Right? But blackout, we got to be careful. Blackout, as we say, not the hip term blackout, like I was real mad. Like I blackout, like I didn't know what I was saying, which is an issue when it comes to divorce. Brothers think because they was mad, they divorced her, that it doesn't count. No, it counts as you was mad. Who divorces their wife when they happy? Like who does that? Right? Usually divorces happen is a problem. So of course you're angry when you divorced her. I thought if you was mad it didn't count. No. Not all type of anger doesn't count. You have to be like, you don't even know what you were saying. Now the question is, who can gauge that? The person. So the person might say they're lying. That's all. No, Allah is al-alim. Allah is the all-knower everything. He can sit and fool everybody in front of you. It's a Yom Qiyamah. And everybody's going to get exactly what they deserve. So it's not that all anger invalidates the divorce, but it has to be a high level of anger. So, junun is number 5, when a person loses their sanity. وَإِغْمَاءٍ لَا احْتِلَامَ فِيهِمَا. Also, if a person faints. If a person faints and then they wake up, they become conscious, that is recommended to make a ghusl. Now, for the junun, when a person loses their sanity, and for a person fainting, it's recommended for these two people to make a ghusl as long as, while they were asleep or unconscious, as long as they didn't have a wet dream. Nocturnal emission, as they say. If they had a wet dream while they were asleep, then the ghusl becomes obligatory. See the difference? That was 6. Number 6 was the fainting. But then they described, or they put a condition on whether a person loses their sanity or if a person loses consciousness, faints. As long as in those two situations, which is 5 and 6, as long as when it comes to 5 and 6 that there is no, then that they don't have a wet dream or something like that, then the ghusl is still recommended. طيب. He says, number 7, for the sisters, وَاسْتِحَاضَةٍ لِكُلِّ صَلَاةٍ. Recommended for the woman that has istihada, which is a type of bleeding. I'm not sure if the sisters are familiar. Are any sisters familiar with this, what istihada is? It's outside of the menstrual cycle, and it's outside of the postpartum bleeding. Say it again. Irregular, Jade. I like to use y'all terms because I used the term last week and somebody was grinding me up. I used the wrong term. Irregular bleeding for the sisters, which happens like menopause. Now let me ask you, because I don't know. Is menopause like a sickness? Do they declare that a sickness? Menopause. Okay. Well, let's say because it's not restricted to menopause. So let's just say a woman is sick and she has irregular bleeding outside of her menses. That means her menses is already finished. This is nowhere near the time for her to have her menses and it's still blood flowing. In this case, it's recommended, not that she has to, for every salat to make a ghusl. Not that she has to, it would be recommended for every salat to make a ghusl. Why? Because the blood is constantly flowing. So if she didn't make a salat for every ghusl, if she didn't make a ghusl for every salat, the woman who's bleeding like this, it wouldn't invalidate her prayer. Okay, the istihada. And that's a whole section that we'll deal with when we get to the chapter of the menses, inshallah, Babul Hayd. طيب. Come on.
Would like female like menstrual blood or blood from that area, would that be considered najis?
Yes.
So even like so they would have to make at least wudu between every
No doubt. At least wudu. At least wudu. طيب خلاص. They have to make wudu before every salat, but they don't have to make a ghusl. The ghusl is recommended before every salat. The wudu is obligatory before every salat because they're like the person who, which could be a male or a female, if I'm not mistaken, the person who constantly has urine. The urine is constantly discharging, right? It's like on that type of, they're not related, but they're comparing. So they would have to make wudu for every salat, which in reality is a sickness. There's nothing they can do about it. So even if they made the wudu, it still won't leak. But they've done the most that they could do. You know what I mean? طيب. Number 8, what ihram. Ihram is recommended to make ghusl before getting in the state of ihram. Who doesn't know what ihram is? Like, ihram. You don't want to shake.
But you know what it is?
Yeah.
Before you go on Hajj or Umrah.
Before you go on the Hajj and Umrah. So before you put on the white, as they call them, the white sheets, right, and make your intention, because you can put on the white sheets and not be in ihram. The intention is what solidifies that you're in the state of ihram. Before you make your intention, get dressed for Hajj or Umrah, that you recommended to make a ghusl first. Make the full body bath first. That was number 8. Number 9, وَدُخُولِ Mecca. It's also recommended to make a ghusl before entering Mecca. Before entering Mecca. When you go for Hajj or Umrah, nobody lands, no plane flies into Mecca. So it's going to land in the city outside of Mecca. Right? For us, no, they don't have an airport in Mecca. There's no airport in Mecca. And it could be for safety reasons, but there's no airport in Mecca, number 1. Most of us, more than likely, wouldn't have that option coming from here. Unless we went, I'm not going to say that. Depends on what route you took, if you would be able to practice that sunnah or not. If you weren't able to practice the sunnah before you enter Mecca, you would still be able to practice the sunnah, inshallah, of making the ghusl before getting in ihram. Inshallah. طيب. Number 10, it says, وَحَلِمِهَا. It's also recommended to make a ghusl before entering the actual haram, the masjid al-haram, where the Kaaba is. Number 11, وَوُقُوف بِعَرَفَةٍ. The standing on the day of Arafah. The day of Arafah is the most important day of Hajj. And if a person is able to make a ghusl the day for the day of Arafah, before they go stand on Arafah, then this is also recommended. Okay. Arafah, A-R-A-F-A-H. A-R-A-F-A-H, the most important day of Hajj, and Hajj Arafah. That was number 11. Number 12 and number 13 were tawaf, ziyarah 10 were wada'i. Both of these are tawaf. Number 12 and 13 are 2 different types of tawaf, 2 different times. They're going around the Kaaba. When you go around the Kaaba 7 times, that going around the Kaaba is recommended. The person who wants to make tawaf, ziyarah, and tawaf al-wada', that they make a ghusl before performing that tawaf, before going around the 7 times and making a sa'i. Those are 12 and 13. Two types of tawaf, or two different times for the tawaf. Also during the time of Hajj, which is number 14, which is Mabit bi Muzdalifah. All of these times are times that are connected to a large gathering of Muslims coming together. And again, in that case, when the Muslims are gathering like that in those large numbers, it's recommended to make a ghusl. It's recommended to make a ghusl. So staying the night at Muzdalifah, which is another area on Hajj, Muzdalifah, is also recommended to make the ghusl. And number 15, the last one, is Ram al-Jimar. Also on Hajj, before you go stone, the Jamarat, the stoning, which is a part of the Hajj, before a person goes to stone the Jamarat, they should also make Hajj. They should also make a ghusl, recommended to make a ghusl. Now, he moves on to a specific part for the sisters, which is important. وَتَنْقُضُ الْمَرْأَةِ شَعْرَهَا لِحَيْدٍ وَنِفَاسٍ. That if a woman has, let's say, braids, that her hair is braided, right? That she takes the braids out, she has to undo the braids for a ghusl, if that ghusl is for the menses or the ghusl is for postpartum bleeding, right? It's a couple times that a woman may have to make a ghusl, right? When her menses is finished, her menstrual cycle is done, or the postpartum bleeding is done, or when else? Intercourse, right? Like, so the question is now, she has braids or plaits or whatever the case may be. Does she have to take those braids out every time she makes a ghusl? It depends on what ghusl she's making it for. If it's menses, then she has to take them out, and if it is postpartum bleeding, she has to take them out. But if it's for janaba intercourse, then she doesn't have to take them out, as long as the water that she cleans her head with reaches down to the scalp. Sisters, you can't be scared to wet your hair. Can't be, it's the salat, you know what I'm saying? Or the brothers, can't be scared to mess your hair up. If the hair is braided, then it is touching the scalp. For the janaba, make sure we specify the two. Two of them you don't have to take the braids out. I'm sorry. Two of them you do have to take the braids out. One of them you don't. Okay? Again? I didn't hear what you said. The two that you have to take them out is after the menses and after postpartum bleeding. And if you look at it, they occur less often. Okay? The menses occurs once a month. Okay? The postpartum bleeding, let's just say once a year or so. Right? That you would have to take the braids out. Now, if a woman, as far as intercourse, then intercourse can happen 3-4 times a week. Could be once a week, could be twice, it depends. In that case, it would be a hardship for a woman to get it braided, take it out, get it braided, take it out. In that case, the woman doesn't have to take the braids out, as long as the water is able to get to the scalp. As long as the water is able to get to the scalp. Inshallah, that's clear. SubhanAllah. I left the joint. Now we came to someone to show y'all the month, but I left it in the office. You want to get it, ask not for the book. I think it's on the top of the bookshelf. He says, وَسُنَّةٌ تَوَضُّءٌ بِمُدٍّ وَالْغِسَالٍ بِصَاعٍ. It is recommended, sunnah, to make wudu with a mud worth of water. A mud worth of water. And to make a ghusl with a sa'a worth of water. These two words, mud and sa'a. A mud Does anybody know what a mud is? How much it would be? A mud? Yeah, it's described one. Somebody with a normal sized hands, if you would fill up, if somebody cut their hands like that, and to fill that up, and make wudu with that much water. A ghusl would be 4 of those. There you are. This is the mud. Approximately. This mud fits about, which, as you can see, this is an estimation, right? Right? Because everybody hands, so how do they describe it? They describe it as normal, medium, not a person that we would say, oh, he has big hands or he has small hands, right? So they say like medium-sized, we could say, size hands, right? That a person makes wudu with this much water, recommended. Like if this holds about, you know, the water bottles. A water bottle is like,
16 ounces.
yeah, it holds about a water bottle and a half for this, right? About a water bottle and a half in this one. And this may hold a little more. So it's an estimation. Recommended to make wudu with a mud and to make a ghusl out of 4 of these. Huh?
No, it seems when you read it, it seems like it's not that much water, but they actually see it with the full
Right.
the measurement.
It looks a lot bigger. And if you pour water in here, this is
Yeah, you can definitely get a nice amount.
you can get a nice amount of water. It's like a water bottle and a half, 1.5. Now if you make 3, meaning if you wash every body part 3 times, then you should be able to do it with that. So probably something did it with this, with a mud. Now, this looks smaller than that, right? And that's why the estimations vary. This one goes back, this has ascended a chain, this size has a chain back to this companion, if I'm not mistaken, it's Zayd ibn Thabit, if I'm not mistaken. That we were able to get the ijazah from the Shaykh in the Haram, he has a chain tracing back to the Sahaba. If I'm not mistaken, Zayd ibn Thabit with this size mud. But there may be another chain with a mud, it may be a little shorter, it's an estimation. Tayyib Sunnah is to make wudu with 1 of those and to make ghusl with 4 of those, and it's disliked to waste water. Meaning a person could go above this and make a wudu, but they shouldn't waste. It's disliked to waste water. They could go above this making wudu, or go above 4 of these making ghusl, but it's disliked to waste water. Tayyib, fadal.
In reference to the fact that when I read about the Prophet Muhammad's son and Ghusl, they always mentioned that he would wash his feet away from where he took the
Actual ghusl.
yeah.
There you go.
So from now, in reference to like how we do it now, so should you like make it go in the shower, do what you gotta do to get out, go to the sink and wash your feet, or can you just wash your feet in the shower?
I asked one of the shuyukh that it wouldn't be a problem if a person did that. Is it a need for that? Because
That's what I thought. Like maybe it was back in that time. It was
right,
a need.
it was a need as the water is not draining like the water is draining.
Exactly.
So now, if you cleaning yourself out of your body off from najis, from filth, and you standing in it, right, and you want to completely clean, and then you need to move out of what you're standing in and move over there to a clean spot and then clean the rest of it off. In the case where a person, for example, was in the shower where the water is running off, then he said, in that case, it's not necessary, you don't have to. But a person still might want to just do what the Sunnah says. Well, he moved, I'm going to move. It wouldn't be a problem. It's like how you can't move. If you move, alhamdulillah, that's. Does a person have to move in order for the ghusl to be valid? A person doesn't have to move as long as they're not standing in najis. As long as they're not standing, the water is cleansing, it's washing off, and there's new water coming. They're not standing in the filth that they clean themselves off with. طيب وإنما بالغسل رفع الحدثين أو الحدث وأطلق ارتفع. If a person intends, they make their intention with the ghusl for the two impurities, right? The minor impurity and the major impurity. Meaning, a person intends with their ghusl to, they can do anything that they would need to do. They can do anything that would necessitate wudu. That means they intend by their ghusl that they can pray, they can read the Mus'haf, they can do all that stuff, and they intend by their ghusl to do anything that will prevent them from the major impurities, intercourse and things like that. If they intend to make the ghusl to purify all of that, then it counts. Or if they just intend to remove the hadath, the impurity from themselves, to remove it, to lift that barrier, just like that, then it is also wudu. The point of mentioning that is if a person specifies, for example, or they don't say it, but they intend to make wudu specifically for this, right? Then that thing that they specify for might not cover all the other impurities, if that makes sense. That means you made wudu specifically so you're able to do this one thing. And if that's the case, that might not cover other things that could invalidate the wudu or something like that, or the salah. طيب. He says, and it is also recommended, and this is the end of the chapter, وَسُنَّ لِجُنُبٍ غَسْلُ فَرْجِهِ وَالْوُضُوء لِأَكْلٍ وَشُرْبٍ وَنَوْمٍ وَمُعَادَةِ الْوَطْءِ. It is recommended for the person in the state of janaba who has had intercourse that needs to make a ghusl. There's some things that are recommended for them to do. The first thing is that they wash themselves. They wash the private part. طيب. The one that's in the state of janaba, they didn't make a ghusl, right? Let's just say they didn't make a ghusl immediately. They didn't make a ghusl immediately because maybe I'm not praying right now. I'm going to make a ghusl at 4 o'clock. They say it's still recommended that they cleanse themselves. They wash the private area. Number 2, it's also recommended the person in the state of janaba that they make wudu if they intend to eat. That they make wudu before they eat. That they make wudu before they drink anything. Or it's also recommended the person in the state of janaba that they make wudu before they go back for more intercourse. And the ulama discussed the benefits of making wudu between intercourses. I don't think that's a word, but not obligatory, recommended. And they say that, for lack of better words, that in the wudu between intercourse gives the body nasheed, it gives the body energy. Wudu is recommended for all of those things, but they say, well, the ghusl afdal is even better if a person was able to make a ghusl. Meaning the person in the state of janaba and they want to go have dinner. They say it's better that they make a ghusl. Yes, a ghusl is better. But they say it's recommended that they at least make wudu in order, as they say, to lessen the state of impurity. Even though the wudu is not going to allow them to pray. But they say the wudu lessens the state of impurity. But they say it's better in those situations to make a ghusl. And he says, lastly, وَكُرِهَ النَّوْمُ جُنُوبٍ بِلَا وُضُوءٍ. They say it's disliked to sleep, for a person to sleep, a person that's in the state of janaba. They say it's disliked for a person who needs to make a ghusl that they go to sleep without at least making wudu. Does the person have to make a ghusl before they go to sleep? No, they don't have to make a ghusl before they go to sleep. They have to make a ghusl before they pray. But they don't have to make a ghusl before they sleep. But they say that it's disliked to go to sleep without at least making wudu for the person who's in the state of janaba. We'll stop there, inshallah. Are there any questions? Next week we'll do the chapter of tayammum, dry wudu, dry ablution. Yeah. Right.
We talking about the hadith from the companion moving around the dirt, and he told the man to get out of
We did that? But that's part of it. We didn't do it, but that's part of it. That's part of it.
It probably was part of it.
Yeah, that's part of it. So we'll do that chapter next week, which has some detail to it. Inshallah, we'll stop there with sallallahu sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. We'll call it that. Waiting on y'all.